we are very pleased to meet a candidate for the Senate district currently held by Mike Knopfs, and he is no stranger to public service. His name is Mike Callton, and Mike, it's nice to have you with us today. Good morning.
Good morning.
You, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about your life besides politics. Where are you from? What do you do? That kind of stuff.
Well, I live in Nashville, Michigan. That's north of Battle Creek, and we're right on 66. I'm the chiropractor there. I've been the chiropractor there for 27 years. And about 25 years ago, there was a couple vacancies on the Nashville Village Council. See, in Nashville, such a small town, you have to wear multiple hats.
Right.
And so there were a couple of vacancies where no one was even running. They were just there. So I stepped into a seat and started getting the feel of being in public service and learning things that even apply to being in the state legislature, like open meetings, freedom of information, budgets. All those things were very portable and served me well when I was in the legislature.
So you've done a lot of public service and also, worked your main job and stuff. What's the attraction? What do you like? Why do you do it?
What's interesting about it, I'm fascinated as I travel from town to town, looking at their business area, looking at their curbs, gutters, infrastructure, water tower. And what's interesting to me is we see some small towns that may not have a water tower, may not have sewer and water, may rely on pump pressure, septic fields instead of a sewer system. And so these towns are interesting to me, interesting to watch them build their infrastructure. And that's just from the infrastructure point of view. And then there's the way, how do the towns work? How do they budget? What do they provide their citizens? And that's what's always fascinated me about working with these small communities.
And I think we've been hearing a lot about how many of them are really struggling right now to get their funding, to get their roads in shape. There's a provision in state law where they basically have to put up half the money for roads in a lot of these outlying townships. And if they don't come up with a mechanism to do that, guess what gets done? Nothing.
In Calhoun County, a 70% match is required unless a certain amount of mills are voted on. I think 3 mills, 70%. And townships are not even in the PA 51 formula that sends money to different levels of government. Townships don't get anything, yet they're expected to cough up 70% of the money. That's wrong.
So what should we do? And I mean, you're going door-to-door campaigning right now, and it's the 19th district, is that right?
Correct.
19th Senate District. I should have said that from the onset, too. That is Calhoun County, Berry County, and Ionia County.
That's correct.
And they didn't even chop them in half or anything. It's 3 counties in their entirety in that Senate district. That seems kind of rare to me, but I'm sure the gerrymanderers will do something about that at some point. But so anyway, that's what we're talking about, the representation area that Mike Knopfs currently represents in the state Senate. He's term limited and will not be able to serve. So we have 2 gentlemen that are running for it. Mike Callton is one of them. And I imagine when you go knocking on doors, you're hearing about roads.
The number one issue, I ask every voter I talk to, what do you think's the number one issue in Michigan, in your community? And by and large, the largest answer is roads, more than half the time, maybe 70% of the time. And then there's other issues, from car insurance to the opioid problem, schools. Lots of other issues fall into that other 30%, but 70% of the people are concerned about roads. And that's why I think if you don't have ideas, if you don't have solutions for the road problem we have, then you shouldn't be in the legislature.
Well, and our legislators are throwing a bunch of money at it, and how are they doing so far with that? Is it going to be enough? What would you do to get our roads in better shape? It's pretty important.
Well, several years ago, the legislature passed a solution that involved more gas taxes, more registration fees. And what's frustrating about that is we've been paying more gas taxes. We've been paying more registration fees. Oh, I just got the bill for my wife's car. Really went up what it costs to register your car. But people I'm talking to aren't seeing the difference in their roads, and it's several years later. Something needs to change. We need to look at how we fund roads. There is more money in it now. More money is going to be coming in it, ramping up till 2021. But we need to look at, once we get that money, then how it's distributed. And that's why I think we need to look at changing Public Act 51 to get more money to communities, to get more money to townships. Townships are not in the formula right now. They need to be in the formula if they're going to be expected to match money.
I know in my township, Leroy Township, they sent out a questionnaire. You know, what should we do? Should we put a millage question on the ballot? Should we have a one-time special assessment? Should we do nothing? And if they do nothing, they get nothing because of 51, which you just referred to. Am I correct?
Correct.
So you're saying that we need a mechanism where townships, that everybody's going to at least get some of the pie to do some road repair?
Sure. When I went to the Leroy Township meeting, one of the biggest potholes I've seen was right by there. And
oh, you must have come down my road, Mike.
Okay. Well, and if you think it's bad in the car, imagine being on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
That you're going to get hurt. It's just amazing to me that townships are expected to pass millages or to do other mechanisms, take money that should go to maybe fire trucks and match roads when they don't get any money in the funding formula. Obviously, counties aren't getting enough money because they should be covering a lot of these roads, but they're not able to, and that's why they're asking for the match. So we need to change. Once the money comes in, we need to change how it's distributed.
What about this auto insurance question? Lawmakers had a bill before them. It failed. And so now we got nothing. We have one of the highest auto insurance rates in the entire country, if not the highest. What do we need to do to reform that?
Well, I'm glad you asked about this because I saw several bills come before the legislature in the last 7 years or so. And all of them involved a massive cut of the services you would get if you were in an accident. But none of them really guarantee a permanent reduction in your insurance. And there has not been anything out there that I would consider voting for. What I propose, okay, we do have, if not the highest, one of the highest insurance rates in the country. It's ridiculous. And one of the issues is the MCCA, the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's great that if you get in an accident, your medical bills are going to be covered, and you're not going to have to go on to Medicaid and have to spend down your legacy, your family's savings down to $2,000. That's what you have to do when you go on Medicaid. And Medicaid does not deliver the kind of care that you would get with the MCCA. There's over $20 billion in the MCCA fund.
Are we sure about that even?
We're sure about that.
Okay,
there's over $20 billion in it.
It's kind of a secret society in a way.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about. It's very well funded when they have like under $1.5 billion a year of claims, but over $20 billion in the fund is compared to the state of Michigan. It's got like $1 billion of savings with a liability of $57 billion a year. It's extremely well funded. Why they just raised the assessment you pay to $192 per vehicle per year. If you've got two cars in your family, that's $192 per vehicle. If you have more, it's per vehicle, not per person. And if you're like my buddy Jeff, who's got 6 vehicles, ouch.
Holy cow! $1,200 a year just for that part.
$192 for each vehicle. It's ridiculous. When it's so already well funded, we could not put any money into it at all, and it would last for at least 15 years without putting money into it. That needs to come down. The legislature can act on this because the legislature formed the MCCA, and the legislature can act on this. I think it should be reduced to about $50 per year from $192. That would save each person $142 per vehicle per year, hundreds of dollars for your family per year, and still have the protection and the care you would get from the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association without risking your family's savings, without risking their legacy. Right now, like you said, secret society, closed meeting of insurance insiders determines what this fee is going to be, and it needs to be opened up. When I was in the legislature, I put in a bill to have a member of the public sit on that board. But right now, no one can see how they decided to raise it to $192 per vehicle per year when it's so well funded.
So we need some transparency there.
Yes.
Mike Callton is our guest. He is running for the 19th State Senate District. And why do you want this job, Mike? You served in the Michigan legislature in the State House for how long?
6 years.
For 6 years, is that all you can serve? I think
when you're a state rep, you can only serve 6 years. Now, as a state senator, you can serve 8 years.
Right, 8 years. And why do you want to go back? You must have liked it.
Well, I got there in 2011, and at that time, we were coming off a pretty hard spanking in terms of loss of about over 800,000 jobs in Michigan. Mm-hmm. Unemployment was up at 14.9%. And when employment's bad, you're not collecting as many taxes, and so the state's budget was going into the toilet because of that. And that was affecting everything from roads to schools. So coming in, it was exciting to be with a great group of people and to work on how we tax, work on regulations. Are we over-regulating in certain areas? And what can we do to stimulate the economy? And over the course of time, we're back about 500,000 jobs. We still haven't recovered from the 800,000 job loss, but unemployment's down below 5%. Mm-hmm. It was up at 14.9. So we're down to a third of the unemployment. And it was exciting to be part of that. There's more work to do. Look at our roads. Look at the cost of insurance. We have an opioid crisis that we need to work on. And health policy has been a strength of mine. I was chairman of health policy while I was in the House. And there's some very contemporary health policy issues that are ever-changing that need to be addressed.
And obviously, your opponent has a lot of medical background. You also have a background in that field. Not too many in the legislature right now do. So we think that's probably a valuable thing.
Well, I'm a chiropractor, and one thing I was taught by a great mentor of mine was, whenever in doubt, do the right thing for patients. And that's always been, when you get into a tough decision, you just do the right things for patients, and you can sleep well at night knowing you've done the right thing. And that's how I approached several issues that were brought on many times by technology, by changes of politics. Nothing seems to stay the same. We're seeing new medicines that can cure hepatitis. We're seeing whole new classes of cancer therapy drugs. We're seeing medical marijuana. We're seeing contemporary changes that in an opioid crisis. We're seeing changes that do require the legislature to interact.
What makes you the best guy for the job for the voters of the 19th Senate District in Michigan?
I think I'm good at building groups. I'm effective. I am able to pass big bills. And something you do see in the legislature is, you got some good people out there. They represent their district well, but they cannot, really move big legislation. I think I've shown I'm able to move that kind of legislation and at the same time do a great job representing my constituents when they have problems. If they have a problem with their license, with their unemployment, we can go to bat for them.
Mike Callton, we do appreciate you spending a few minutes. Let's see if we can get you back in here before the primary election, which is, August 6th, I think?
August 7th.
August 7th, Tuesday, August 7th. We have a lot of primaries this year, which is, I'd say, uncommon and an encouraging sign that a lot of people want to serve. We'll be narrowing down the field for the November election again, August 7th. Mike Callton hopes to be your state senator. Once again, Mr. Callton, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.